From Poirier claiming Diaz's experience will be of no help in the ring, to Tony Bellew commenting that he was insane to go up against Paul. Here's what Dustin Poirier and other pros predict for Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. The Diamond has his bets set on the internet's problem child. Whoa, what? Not gonna lie, the fact that a YouTuber could win against an MMA legend has the OG fans in heavy denial. And Jake Paul is a pro at that. He's defeated not one, not two, but three MMA legends in his career. He annihilated Anderson Silva, that guy who held the record for the longest UFC title reign in the championship's history, Tyron Woodley, who shares the record for the most title defenses amongst male champions between 2016 and 2020, and Ben Askren, a former Bellator and one championship welterweight champion. So it isn't really surprising that many are favoring him over Diaz. According to Poirier, Jake's younger, bigger, and faster, so it won't be an easy fight for the 38-year-old. And contrary to what many people think, just because Nate's a roughed-up veteran with the right experience and his rival is a new guy who's a social media influencer, it really doesn't guarantee him success at all. The YouTuber has the money and the resources to fuel his career and surround himself with the best people to help him skyrocket to the top. And here's the biggest issue. Diaz is an MMA fighter, not a boxer. And with this being his first fight in the sport, going up against Paul, who's an expert boxer and has built up a record for defeating MMA-turned-boxers, it might not turn out so well for the Stockton Slugger. While Poirier has never scored a match with Diaz, the two have quite a history. The two longtime veterans were set to clash in 2018 at UFC 230. However, that was cancelled due to Dustin getting injured, and although these two have repeatedly trash-talked each other on social media and called each other out in the years after their failed bout, they never really got the chance to settle their rivalry in the ring. During a recent appearance on the MMA Hour, he wished the former champion well, and said that he'd always wanted to fight him, but it was fine if it didn't work out. Now that he's searching for new opportunities, taking his leave from the promotion, we can let go of the dream to see them both in the ring. The Diamond is undoubtedly one of the leading names set for the UFC's blockbuster summer schedule, but it seems like the former interim lightweight champion has his eyes set on another match outside the octagon. Just a week after defeating Gaethje, with the BMF title on the line at UFC 291, the 34-year-old will watch one of his dream opponents debut in an entirely different sport. The upcoming match, which will take place on the 5th of August 2023, will feature Nate Diaz stepping into the ring for the first time, while Paul cracks his knuckles to add another retired MMA fighter to his roster. And as always with Jake's appearances in the combat sport, a variety of predictions have flown from fans, fighters, and pundits, forming two teams with very different opinions on how the bout will go. The big question is, will this match send the problem child into his first losing skid? There's a lot at stake for both of them. In a way, this match can make or break their reputations. Paul has recently faced the very first defeat of his career, and since it was the first real boxer he's ever gone up against, all those fights he won to get over the influencers tag crumbled to pieces. Although he was extremely underestimated at first, he's slowly proving his way out of that assumption. His power, speed, and accuracy in his bouts prove he's a dangerous opponent for anyone who steps into the ring with him. However, his loss against Fury has set him back by a lot, so this is his opportunity to get back up on his high horse. Diaz, on the other hand, is a household name. With more than 10 years in UFC, the guy's got all the experience his rival lacks in the sport. He's fought at the highest level in the UFC, against some of the scariest opponents in the promotion, and is known for his toughness and ability to take a hit. He's faced some of the best strikers in the UFC, and has shown that it takes more than a punch to faze him. But as Poirier mentioned, Diaz is 38, while Paul is 26 years old. Besides the explosiveness and stamina that comes with age, the younger Paul brother is also bigger than the former UFC fighter. Although Nate has been in 34 fights, we'll try to ignore the part where he's only won 13. Not to mention he's a martial arts expert. Boxing? Meh. He's still an amateur in the sport. So, although his apparent toughness and will to mix it up often fares well for him, the fact that he's nowhere near the same level as Paul in boxing could make a huge difference. Another reason why the problem child has managed to gather so much favor is because he's already done this exact thing before. As I mentioned before, Diaz won't be the first MMA-turned-boxer he goes up against. Now, the older fighter has a significant edge in combat sports experience. But for those suggesting that gives him a level up, keep in mind that Paul's previous opponents had loads of experience too, and we all know how that turned out for them. But underestimating the Stockton G would be the mistake of a lifetime. That guy is a legend in the MMA circle and does not take criticism well. Besides, there's a lot on the line for him too. After leaving the UFC the way that he did, he can pretty much kiss his career goodbye if he loses to a YouTuber. There's no way Dana's letting him back in after that stunt. Don't get me wrong, this guy is the ultimate G, but the sport doesn't react well to champions losing a match. Take Woodley and Anderson, for example. Even though they were some of the most prominent champions of their time, they lost one match, and their reputation spiraled. So losing to the 26-year-old would quite literally cost Diaz his entire career, especially after having a reputation as the big bad wolf by the entire UFC community for years. Getting defeated by an internet sensation with about a quarter of an experience as him would be catastrophic for his reputation. But keeping Poirier's opinion aside, let's look at who the other pros have sided with for the highly anticipated showdown. Starting with our very own Silva Anderson, the former middleweight champion has always been very vocal about his support for his opponent. However, things are looking different this time. Having had first-hand experience with Paul's skills, he believes Diaz has the upper hand. While talking to Fight Hub TV, he mentioned that the 26-year-old was very smart, had been training a lot, and that people needed to respect his efforts, instead of disregarding him as just a YouTuber. But since the fight was not about just power, but about timing also, Diaz takes the cake. He's very well trained in both boxing and cardio and is a beast in his sport. Silva also stated that Jake Paul shouldn't be preparing for a match. He should be getting ready for a war. Damn. Many people who believe Paul should stick to YouTube have also grudgingly taken Diaz's side, including Conor McGregor, who thinks the former welterweight champion will slap his head off him and that he looks forward to it. Speaking from a place of experience, McGregor has gone up against him twice, and though he lost the first fight by submission, he won the rematch by decision, so he has a good idea of what Diaz is capable of. Sean Strickland, the former king of the cage middleweight champion, added that the whole match is one big joke. He mentioned that it was a clown show, and both of them can go ahead and make money off of it. Safe to say he's with the Diaz crowd. Now, don't get your hopes down, Paul fans, because Tony Bellew fully believes the social media star will easily deal with his opponent. He mentioned that the free agent was a half-decent fighter even in the UFC and in MMA, so as an amateur in boxing, he doesn't stand a chance. He said, having half these hands in mixed martial arts, you're not even as good as a novice boxer. So, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference to someone like Jake Paul. He also stated that since the guy was a career-long lightweight in the UFC, he had to be insane to think he could compete with a man who was above 200 pounds. So from Tony Bellew commenting he was insane to go up against Paul, to Poirier claiming Diaz's experience will be of no help to him in the ring, this is all on what Dustin Poirier and other pros predict for Jake Paul vs. Nate Diaz.